5th century. Rome, the peak of civilization, the throne of arrogance, the master of the world. Old, rich, arrogant, and corrupt Rome. But a storm was brewing on the horizon. Torn from the heart of Asia, a hurricane kneaded with fury. Attila. He came not to build cities, but to wipe them from the map. He came not to write laws, but to trample them with his horse's hooves. He was the steppes answer, forged in iron and fury, to Rome's memory of marble. So, was this man a natural disaster in the course of history? Or was he a divine punishment sent against the arrogance of humanity? In this video, we will uncover the secrets behind the terrifying power of Attila, known as the Scourge of God, who brought civilization to its knees. The Huns. Their homeland was not between four walls, but on the saddles of their horses. For them, borders were not rivers or mountains, but the distance their horses could travel in a single day. The Huns, an incomprehensible and unpredictable force, living just beyond Rome's comfortable world. And in the year 434, two brothers came to lead this force, Bleda and Attila. They were like two opposite poles. Bleda represented stillness, while Attila represented movement. And this could not continue, because the steppe had one law: power is never shared, just as the sky has only one sun. In the year 445, during a hunt, Bleda's body fell to the cold earth. Everyone knew who the killer was, but no one dared to speak his name. Now Attila was the sole and absolute master of the Huns, and his eyes were on the great prey glittering on the horizon: Rome. Right at this time, a shepherd found an ancient sword beneath the earth. According to legend, this was the sword of Mars, the god of war, which he himself had cast down from the heavens to the earth. When Attila took the sword in his hand, he knew it was a sign. This was proof that God had given him the task of conquering the world. From now on, he was not just a leader, but an envoy of a divine will. This legend of the sword of God would become his greatest weapon, because you could fight an army, but you could not fight a legend. Attila first aimed his weapon at the Eastern Roman Empire. When the Byzantine envoys set out to meet with him, Attila met them on horseback before they even reached the border. Without giving the envoys a chance to speak, without even condescending to dismount from his horse, he listed his own terms. From now on, asylum would not be granted to fugitives, Hunnic tombs would not be desecrated, and the annual tribute they paid would be doubled. This was not a negotiation, it was a decree. I am the Scourge of God, Attila. Your end has come, O Rome. Pray to your gods, for they cannot save you now. Attila's method was not a simple conquest. He was harvesting fear. He razed cities to the ground, but he did not hold their lands. His aim was to leave an irreparable terror in their minds. And then, he would unleash his genius. He placed the empires he had terrified under his protection, on the condition that they paid him in gold. This was the greatest protection racket in history. With every piece of gold Rome paid for peace, it was, in fact, feeding its own executioner. It was precisely at this time that a name began to spread from ear to ear in Rome: Flagellum Dei, the Scourge of God. So what did this mean? It was not just a nickname. It was an interpretation, an explanation. For 5th century Christian Rome, the world was governed by divine justice. Arrogance, corruption, endless civil wars. The empire was steeped in sin, and according to them, God had chosen a scourge to discipline these sinful servants. Attila was perfect for this role. He was not a Christian. He came from beyond the known world. His cruelty was so inhuman that it could only be explained by a divine mission. This name was also a psychological comfort, because if your enemy was sent by God, your defeat was not a disgrace, but an inevitable fate. In their eyes, Attila was not a personal enemy, but a terrifying yet necessary part of a divine equation. Wanting to be free of these tributes, Byzantium sought a solution in assassinating Attila. However, Attila learned of this plan beforehand thanks to his spies. He had the assassin captured but did not kill him. He did something crueler. He sent him back to Emperor Theodosius with this letter: Theodosius, you are the son of a noble father as I am. I have preserved the nobility I inherited from my ancestors. You, on the other hand, have fallen to the status of a slave by paying me tribute. Not content with that, you could not even preserve the dignity of a slave. Because you sought to take the life of me, your master. This was a blow sharper than any sword. And Attila, now known as the Scourge of God, turned his eyes to the west, to his true target. The pretext he sought came from Rome, with the desperate cry of a woman. The emperor's sister, Honoria, in order to escape a marriage she despised, secretly sent a letter and her engagement ring to Attila, asking him to save her. Attila interpreted this request as a marriage proposal and demanded half of the Western Roman Empire as her dowry. When refused, he marched upon Europe to defend his honor. However, in the West, someone like his own reflection was waiting for him. Flavius Aetius. Aetius, known as the Last Roman, had been a hostage among the Huns in his youth. He had ridden with them and learned their language and their mindset. The only man who could stop Attila was the man who understood him best. 451. The Catalonian Plains. As the sun set that day, tens of thousands of dead had stained the battlefield crimson. There was no clear victor, but for the first time, Attila had been stopped. He retreated. But this was not an end. It was the beginning of a greater storm. Sharpened by the fury of defeat, Attila crossed the Alps the following year and descended directly into Italy, into the heart of Rome. This time, neither Aetius nor an army stood before him. Cities were falling one by one, and Rome awaited its end in terror. The emperor had fled. The city was defenseless. It was at that moment that one of history's greatest mysteries unfolded. An old man with no army, whose only power was his faith, Pope Leo I, walked to Attila's headquarters. What was spoken between the two men? Did the Pope remind him of God's wrath? Or did he offer all the gold of Rome? Perhaps the plague that had broken out in Attila's army forced him to this decision. Whatever the reason, the result was incredible. Attila turned his back and retreated without touching Rome. The end for history's greatest warrior did not come on a battlefield. In the year 453, on the night of his wedding to a young woman named Ildico, he retired to his chamber after the feast. When morning came, his servants found him in his bed, drenched in blood. Not from a sword wound, not from poison. He had suffocated on his own blood from a simple nosebleed. The man who made civilization tremble had departed from this world in the most helpless, most ordinary way. They buried him with a mystery befitting his legend. They temporarily diverted a river, and beneath its dry bed, they interred him in a triple coffin, iron, silver, and gold. After he was buried with his treasures, the river was released back to its course, and everyone who knew the location of the grave was killed to keep the secret forever. That tomb has still not been found. Attila did not leave a lasting empire behind. Because he was not a builder, he was a storm. And when the storm subsided, all that remained was the legend he created, and the primal fear he had carved into the heart of civilization. So, was Attila a necessary force to shake a corrupt world? Or was he a senseless destruction that annihilated everything in its path? And the real question is, which of the two is more terrifying? We await your thoughts in the comments.